to the Sports Note here on Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th, and the color of my room should have no outlier on which party affiliation I'm at. That's not the time nor place here, but it's red for a reason here, and we're coming down to the end here, folks. We've some teams have got only 3, maybe 4 games left in their schedule in college football. The first college football expanded tournament pairings will be announced later tonight, as if we don't have enough going on tonight. But one of the teams that figures to be somewhere in the mix, although they might be a quote-unquote bubble team, are the Indiana Hoosiers of all things. As college basketball just started last night, Duke got a big win, Michigan got a win. Indiana basketball is taking a back seat right now to Indiana football. Name the last time that happened. I'll answer that question. 1967. The Hoosiers right now are 9-0. It's the best start in program history. 8-0 last week tied that. The Hoosiers have never had a double-digit win season, and they've got 3 games left to be able to do that. They host Michigan this week in Bloomington. Then comes the big one where they go to Columbus to face number 3 Ohio State in 2 weeks. They've got a bye week next week, and then after that is their trophy game, their rivalry game for the Old Oaken Bucket against Purdue in a game that Purdue has won 3 years in a row and 5 of the last 6. Now, here's the thing with Indiana. You could call it fool's gold. You could call it whatever you want, but Indiana has not played a ranked opponent yet this season. Ohio State will be the only ranked opponent that they will face in the regular season. Coming into the year, the Hoosiers, out of all the pollsters and everything for the Big Ten standings, were picked to finish 17th out of the expanded 18 teams. The only team that was supposed to be below them, was Purdue. So this actually now, instead of the Old Oaken Bucket just being a game for all the trophies that they would cover for 5 or 6 seconds, this could actually be a game that, Indiana's going out and trying to win to be able to maybe solidify, their at-large seating. If not, if they pull the miraculous upset in Columbus in 2 weeks, could we actually be talking about an Oregon-Indiana Big Ten championship in Indiana? Now, does Indiana really have, the kind of run in them to beat Michigan, to beat Ohio State, to win back their trophy, and then beat the number 1 team in the country? It would be the ultimate underdog story, because let's face it, whatever bowl game that Indiana is going to end up playing in is going to be significant enough, much like how Missouri was last year, playing with a lot of house money, and then continued to keep that role going, ultimately beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl last year, although it was not the greatest game in the world by any stretch of the imagination. But where does Indiana turn things around here? We saw kind of, the inkling of them going in the right direction a few years ago, and that was actually in part with head coach Tom Allen. He had gotten them to back-to-back bowl seasons in 2019 and 2020. They were 8-5 in 2019, lost in the Gator Bowl. Were 6-2 in the COVID year in 2020, lost in the Outback Bowl, finished ranked in the top 15 in both the AP and the coaches polls, but then the wheels kind of fall off. They go 2-10 in 2021. They don't win a game at all in the Big Ten. They go 4-8 in 2022. They're 2-7 in the Big Ten, and they finish second to last in the East. They're 3-9 last year, 1-8 in the conference. Another basement seeding at that point, another basement finish, and that means Tom Allen, after 7 seasons and 2 bowl appearances, gets fired very late in the season. In comes Curt Cignetti. If that name sounds familiar, we talked about Kurt Signetti on this show last year, right around this time as well, because Kurt Signetti came from James Madison. Now we all remember the kind of run that James Madison went on last year in the Sun Belt. It was only their second year in Division 1A. They were climbing up the ranks. They got themselves into the top 15, but they were technically not bowl eligible because you had to be at least 2 years in Division 1A. I'm not going to call it this FCS or FBS or whatever it is garbage. It's still Division 1 and 1A. When you kind of strip it back, you notice how they don't call it that in college basketball, because of your Division 1, whether you're technically 1A, everyone plays at the top level. There is a division here, so it's not really fair calling it what it is here. But also, you keep in mind that the bowl championship committee, they basically pick it was for now the 12 teams that are going to vie for the championship that the NCAA doesn't actually give out, but the FCS, what they call the 1AA championship, that is still actually picked by the NCAA. They're the ones who actually still award that trophy. And Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, it's only the top level where the NCAA does not hand that trophy out. So let's see what the committee does tonight. Indiana has the number 3 scoring offense in the country, and a lot of that is based in part off of the style of offense that Signetti likes to run. They've outscored their opponents. The only 2 times this season that Indiana has not won by at least 20 was 2 weeks ago, where they beat Washington by 14, and then they beat Northwestern 2 weeks before that. I want to say that was October 5th. They beat them by 17, but everything else has been a 20, 30-point win. They have, according to my notes here, they have the number 7 scoring defense in the nation as well, giving up only 13.7 points per game. They have the number 19 passing offense in the country, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, and the number 30 rushing offense in the country. They're averaging over 191, just shy of 192 yards on the ground, and over 280 through the air on average. Now, with their quarterback play, that's due very much in part to what Signetti has brought out of senior Curtis Rourke. Now, Rourke last year threw for 2,207 yards. He had a 63.5% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and he had a quarterback rating of 132.5. This year, Signetti has thrown 93 fewer passes. He's completed 41 fewer. He's at 2,204 yards, 3 away from last year's number. He's at 19 touchdowns. He's more than 8 beyond last year. He's thrown 3 interceptions this year. He only threw 5 all of last year. His quarterback rating is 188.5 and is well on his way to eclipsing his best career numbers, which would be 2022, where he actually threw for 69%. He threw for 3,256 yards, 25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So basically, he needs 1,000 yards essentially over 4 games here, and 6 touchdowns to be able to eclipse his better numbers. And then also, little by little, for the 6'5" quarterback out of Oakville, Ontario, is starting to get a lot of scouts and a lot of people talking about him being a mid-round pick in the NFL draft next year. Maybe something like what Spencer Rattler is hoping to be, in the NFL. May not actually jump off the page. Let's also see what the combine does. Does he elevate himself into maybe a day 2 pick? Let's actually see what happens here. Not a whole lot of people said that about Michael Penix, up until last year, and then Penix shot up the draft board and was a first round pick and is projected to be the future of the Atlanta Falcons, regardless of what happens, with Kirk Cousins. But Indiana needs a season like this, because Indiana is only 3-10 all time in bowl games, And their last win in a bowl game, you have to go back to the 1991 Copper Bowl with a 24-0 win over Baylor. The last time that Indiana was in a season like this, they went to the Rose Bowl, even though they lost 14-3 against USC back in that 67 Rose Bowl. It was still a season of dreams here. And Cignetti is well on his way. You would think maybe could he turn this program around? Is he going to maybe start getting looks to jump to, some higher programs? Could Florida possibly come calling if Billy Napier is shown the door this year, which some people think may end up happening? Does he stay at Indiana and try and build with this, even though he's going to have to do it with Rourke exiting after this season? So let me know what you guys think. Where do you think Indiana ends up in the polls when the rankings come out tonight? Do you think a loss to Ohio State, as long as they don't get blown off the field, causes them to slide completely out? Do you think that they also have the ability to give the Big Ten that fourth team in the tournament on top of Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon? Or do you think they're maybe going to get shown the door, so to speak, and still maybe play in a New Year's Six type bowl? Do you actually think that they're going to give that underdog idea to, even though Boise State's going to be, right in the mix for that group of 5 bid, and they're already in the top 12 to begin with, and Notre Dame's still hanging around there? Could you possibly have a Cinderella in Indiana, in Boise State returning back to their Cinderella form, and an Independent in Notre Dame taking up 3 of the 12 spots in this field? So Mike and I will be with you guys Sunday night for the Wise Guys Sports Show, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.